The previous video explored the short-term debt cycle, typically lasting 5 to 8 years. Today, we turn our attention to the long-term debt cycle, a phenomenon that spans 75 to 100 years and one that we find ourselves in the midst of or approaching. By examining these cycles, we can better comprehend our economic position and strategize for financial stability. The short-term debt cycle often concludes with more growth and debt than the previous cycle, indicating a rising long-term debt trend. This expansion leads to increased borrowing, with credit flowing freely. As more people become more indebted to lenders, the credit continues to flow even more. Why? Because everyone is happy as the money flows. People are focused on what is happening now as incomes, asset prices, and the stock market rise and the economy experiences a boom. However, this growth, fueled by debt, creates a debt bubble. While debts continue to grow and incomes rise to match, this trend cannot last indefinitely. Over decades, debt repayment prices grow faster than incomes, forcing spending cuts and reducing borrowing. People cut back on their spending, and since one person's spending is another person's income, incomes begin to go down. This makes people less creditworthy, which causes borrowing to go down, leading to the peak of the long-term debt. As seen in the United States in 1929, again in 2008, and in Japan in 1989. Once the long-term debt cycle reaches its peak, deleveraging begins. This process involves spending cuts, income reduction, asset price drops, and social tensions. The vicious cycle of less spending, income, wealth, credit, and borrowing can resemble a recession, but with low interest rates, traditional monetary policy tools are ineffective. To reverse deleveraging, 4 strategies are usually employed that first make things worse but must be performed to reverse the out-of-control debt burdens. These strategies are: 1. Cutting spending, austerity. 2. Debt reduction through defaults and restructurings. 3. Wealth redistribution, and 4. Central bank money printing. When spending is cut, you might think the debt burden would start to decrease, but the opposite happens because one person's spending is another person's income, so incomes fall. This cut in spending is deflationary and painful as businesses are forced to cut costs, which means higher unemployment. This leads to the next painful stage as borrowers cannot repay their debts and default on their payments to the bank. Eventually, this leads people to get nervous that banks won't be able to repay the debts, so they rush to withdraw their money from the bank in a good old-fashioned bank run. To protect against this, lenders agree to debt restructuring, meaning lenders get paid back less or over longer periods or at lower interest rates. This allows the lender to get at least something, but it causes incomes and asset values to disappear faster, so the debt burden worsens. All this debt restructuring with lower incomes and asset values means less taxes for the federal government, so its coffers go down. But it needs to increase spending because employment is low and more people need added support from the government. When the government has to spend more than it can bring in, you have a budget deficit we've all heard about for many years. The government must raise taxes or borrow more money to fund the deficit. When taxes are raised, wealth is redistributed as the government is forced to tax the rich, and money flows from the haves to the have-nots. This creates social unrest because the have-nots start to resent the haves, and the haves start to resent the have-nots. If the depression continues, complete anarchy and social disorder can break out. Not only can tensions rise within a country, they can rise between countries, especially when internal conflicts distract the nation. Ultimately, this can lead to political change that can sometimes be extreme, like what happened in Germany in the 1930s with the rise of Hitler. Thank you for watching. Now that we have looked at the history of how economies function as a means of productivity and short and long-term debt cycles, next time we'll look at where the economy is today and where we are going. Until next time.